Yeah.
How's it going, friends and family of the internet? Welcome to the Real AFTV podcast show about fishing and random takes from the land of 10,000 lakes. I started the podcast before I was even ready, so I fucking caught myself off guard. I'm Josh LaBaw.
Hey, and I'm Tim Wagner. And yeah, we were both totally startled. I was trying to like answer a question. I was like, yeah, that's the noise you were hearing. It was me. I was doing this. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, shoot.
I already said fuck, so you can swear if you want to.
Shitty poop. He called the shit poop.
He called the shit poop. That's one of my favorite fucking jokes, dude. I'm not a big fan of Adam Sandler movies. Like, there's, like Grown Ups and shit like that. But that is one of my favorite fucking jokes, dude. I love it.
Yeah, some of those kid things, man. I can't wait till my kid's old enough that we can like watch that stuff together. Because those, he has an immature brain that plays well to the children,
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like we gotta hit that age, because it's like it's immature humor, but it's also like strong language,
Right.
So it's like, and Billy Madison is like Norm Macdonald and the other guy just getting fucked up constantly
the whole time.
So it's like, yeah, there's some things that we need to wait until we introduce
to explain, right?
Don't need them to just be like idolizing it. Like, I need to get me a rich friend, and I'm just gonna get shit faced and lay in the pool all day.
Daddy, how come they're still in the same spot they were during the party yesterday and surrounded by all those cans? Well, let me know.
Because they got a pretty neat friend, let me tell you.
Just leave it at that.
Yeah, just like, I don't know how to say it any better. Can't come out and tell you the truth and say they're living the dream, because oh man, yeah. So yeah, gotta wait and just be like, yeah, it's funny when you get older and you realize what's going on here.
Right. That's actually a good thing. Like, I sometimes do this, sometimes forget, sometimes just don't do it anyway. But it's second half. So we're going to do the Elite Series Lakes. They announced it since last time we recorded. They dropped the Elite Series Lakes. So we're going to go over that here in the front. And then in the second half, we're going to talk about stand-up. And I actually have some Adam Sandler stuff in there. And that was so like good setup transition thingy we didn't even try to do. But Tim, that's not usually how we kick off the podcast. All right. That is the sound of old-timey news. And this one, I can't do an old-timey voice for because this is my clickbait headline. Nope. Nope.
No. What's that all about? Nope.
So Bailey Richards over at People just copied a New York Times article because they at People subscribe to the New York Times. And so then they read it and then just copy it over to their website, apparently.
Oh, weird.
Because I tried to read the New York Times article that was referenced in the People article. Yeah. And the New York Times was like, yeah, you got to have a subscription to get over here. And I was like, yeah, I guess you have to pay for real news. Because what the fuck is People magazine doing reporting on this fish thing?
Right.
So yeah, from what I can tell, it was a copy. Like, I don't know how this isn't called plagiarism, but most of the internet is. We'll get into that in some housekeeping. Anyways,
maybe it's something, just to touch on that real quick. Maybe it's some sort of like a parent company thing.
Maybe.
And that's almost like their shisty way of making it seem like you got into the big leagues. Like, they're just like, we were kind of lazy this week. Which is not the part I'm telling you. I didn't say that at all. What I am saying is, we love your article so much that you are going to be in People magazine. And then just like, no way. Thanks for ripping me off, I guess. I don't know. Just a thought. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. So I couldn't get the New York Times link. So I'll put the people link in the description of the YouTube video, and you can go read it if you want. But from what I read, you don't need to go click on it. Whatever. It was weird. I mean, it just feels weird, right? Anyways,
Sure.
We'll get into that later. Okay, so here's why I was like, nope. This is from Australia. Of course, it has to be from Australia because it's about sharks.
Okay.
Bull sharks.
Bull sharks.
In 1996, floodwaters carried 6 juvenile bull sharks from bordering rivers into a lake on a Carbrook golf course near Brisbane, Australia.
Damn. Talk about a water hazard. Shit, dude.
I wish I had that on the sound effects.
Man.
Yep. There's a 51-acre lake. So, Jesus, they have a huge lake on hole 14.
That is a big lake.
Isn't that crazy?
For a golf course?
I know.
Yeah.
So it's like for real's a lake. I mean, it's not a small lake. I mean, it's small for a lake, I guess.
Yeah. It's small for a lake, but that's huge for a
golf course.
What do they call it? Like a water element.
Water hazard, water. Yeah. I get what you're saying, though.
Maybe like a water feature, because there is a water hazard, but I think sometimes they like name it differently because it's not necessarily just like in the middle of the course. It's like a water hazard is almost like they put it like a sand trap, like it's kind of in the middle. I think if it's off to the side, it's like a water feature. Like it's like, if you fuck up and slice, your shit's going in the water.
Right.
But also the water's there because it looks pretty and there's a fountain.
Right.
And now sharks.
And yes. Exactly. So if you didn't catch the year that this happened, they traced it back it happened in 96. I mean, the golf course, right? Like you're going to notice sharks in your fucking lake.
Yeah.
It's a golf course. They're constantly doing yard work and shit.
Especially if they're like swimming around like stereotypical sharks. You just see the fin.
The fin sticking out.
What the shit was that?
Did I see a fucking shark fin in that lake? And the answer was yes, you did. They counted up 6 of them. And
jeez,
dude, in 96, this article from the Times was written in 2003.
Yeah.
2023.
Okay.
Now, they weren't there that long, but they were there from 96 until 2015. That was the last time they saw a shark in that lake. That's fucking 19 years these sons of bitches lived in a freshwater lake.
Or did they just keep coming back?
No, because over the years, some were illegally fished out. Others went back during some floods. They were constantly there for 19 years. At least 1 out of the 6 was consistently living in that lake because it would get cut off.
That's nuts.
Yeah, because it was a lake. The only way they could get there was when it flooded.
So then they just became freshwater fish.
Studies are still going on, but isn't that fucking ridiculous, dude?
That's crazy. I didn't know. They're just like, whatever. Maybe they even liked it more. They're just like, it's like not salty. It's pretty cool. I don't know. That's crazy. Absolutely, absolutely bananas. I had no idea. You think that it's one or the other. I often I don't know. I'm assuming a lot of people have been to saltwater before. Swimming in saltwater is rough, dude. Like opening your eyes, your lips, it feels like it dries out everything. It's like I can't believe shit like lives in here and just swims on a regular basis. Like I'm so used to freshwater. Like
Right.
Our freshwater, like the only way I can describe it is like our water is just more refreshing.
Yeah.
Like even on the
Yeah.
skin, it's just like ooh. And I've heard other people just like the people that live in the islands, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like
Mm-hmm.
the when we went to Jamaica, the Jamaicans there were just like, you know, they're talking about how it was like keeping their skin nice and their hair
Mm-hmm.
and shit. And you're just
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like it's drying everything out. So I guess maybe you can just like adapt. Like we're clearly both people, you know,
Right.
and you love it here and I love it at home. And if we swapped, I don't know if you'd be into ours, but
Right.
I love your setting and I love swimming in this water.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I could call it home over and over.
Yeah. No,
Just,
I'm
I
with you
suppose I
on
get
that. It's
used to it.
super fun. Like when we were swimming in Jamaica, it was awesome because
Yeah.
though we're both strong swimmers, we swam out in, 10, 20 feet of water or whatever it was
Yeah, we
for
were
a
out there.
very long time.
Yeah.
And
The
again, we're
buoyancy
strong
helps.
swimmers, but
Yeah.
we were just so much more buoyant in that compared to in a lake
Yeah.
that it was we bought more time to just chill.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if they're like strong swimmers in Jamaica and then they come to like Minnesota and it's just like
Bloom.
straight to the bottom. What's wrong with your water? I can barely swim. Just like we were thinking exactly the opposite when we were just like, it is so effortless here. This is
Right.
amazing.
Right. So, anyways, I this blew my mind because also it said that a bull shark typically lives, 20 some years, but less than
Yeah.
30. And they were in this freshwater lake for 19. So do the math. They became freshwater
Yeah.
fish. Like
Right.
at that point, they're already have lived more than half their life in freshwater.
And I wonder what they were eating too. Like,
I
did
know.
they
I wonder
just,
what was in there.
it
Well,
was
a
this,
lot of people stuff, people
yeah.
throwing shit in.
Oh, people
It's
stuff.
yeah, oh yeah, people were
Just-
feeding them.
you paused a long time there. A lot of people
Just a lot
stuff.
of people.
Just a lot of people. Just everybody that went in to grab their ball. And nobody asked any questions. Because they're just like, did a shark eat them? It's a lake on a golf course, you idiot. No. No, that didn't happen. But I wonder what they were eating, you know? I would
I
suppose
know.
just whatever fish and animals end up going in there. You know, a lot of like muskrats and other stuff that walks in there.
Yeah, bet you they
What
were
do
able to
they
snatch up a lot of birds too.
do they have? Yeah, birds. Do they have like gators in Australia?
Yeah, they got crocs. So
Or
they
they got
probably
crocs.
did
They
eat.
got crocs. Maybe they were munching on crocodiles. Juvenile
Maybe.
crocodiles were
Yeah,
up in there and they snatched them up.
probably.
You also don't normally grow super big on a smaller lake, you know, so maybe it
Oh,
just
yeah,
didn't get that big because of its surrounding and because of its food. Maybe it just learned.
right.
It's just like, well, yeah, I'm in fresh water now. I don't eat as much. This is my life. Every once in a every once in
Right.
a while, God gets mad and sends a white meteor zooming through my neighborhood. Oh shit! Just punch the mic.
No, even the mic hit was better. It made fucking sound effects, right?
Yeah. And then somebody would come in with their big rod. And they God would try to get his meteor back.
Thoughts of a bull
Oh,
shark.
right. Thoughts of a bull shark. I've been confined to this unsalty, small body of water, just like
For
a
several
diary
years now.
every day. I have marks on the seaweeds of how many days have passed since I've tasted that sweet, salty. Oh man, I'm not gonna keep going.
No, you're good. So, yep, that was yeah. I couldn't pass that one up. It was fucking weird that it was that website, but it was like that's good. It was good.
That is good.
Freaks me out, but I think we have enough dams in the way that they're not gonna make it this far north. I
Yeah,
think.
it freaks me out
Hopefully.
too, but like I haven't been golfing a lot, but every time I've been to a golf course, I'm just like the shoreline of whatever body of water that is gonna be like mucky as shit. You're gonna like sink into your knees
Yeah.
if
Yep.
you try to walk in. It's gross. It's just been sitting there gathering. Look
Right.
at how perfect this lawn is. You don't think that there's a ton of fucking chemicals on all this grass to keep it this perfect? And
Right.
all that runoff every time it rains. I'm not jumping in that water.
Right. Fuck that.
Yeah, we're lucky that shark didn't get superpowers.
Like that fucking shark from, what is that? Is that? Oh, that's DC.
Oh, now I'm thinking of like the sharks. You remember that cartoon as a kid that they were like the street sharks?
Oh yeah,
And they
dude.
jump into the road and then just like swim through and they
Yeah,
pop
what the
out.
fuck was that?
Oh, they were on rollerblades.
Of course they were on rollerblades. It was the 90s. Fuck.
They're just like,
What the
yeah,
fuck
they
was
can
that called?
swim through the asphalt, but then they jump out and sometimes they rollerblade. But also they like to just, all I could think of is how much money, even as a
How much
child, I'm
money
like,
they must
that's
be
so much
costing the city.
money. You're just ruining all these roads.
All the roads are destroyed.
Oh man, I can't remember what that was, but I do remember that there's a Vin Diesel commercial. Like that was, I think, how he got his start. He's in like a vest and that's it. And he's just like
For
young
that.
Vin Diesel is like, oh, these sharks are neat. And they do this thing. He's like, it's just an old commercial.
He's
of
trying to
Vin
play like street
Yeah,
sharks.
he's got the toys and he's just
Yeah.
like trying to sell
Action
them.
figures.
Yeah.
He's just Ken and Barbieing them, just smashing them together. Vin Diesel.
We're family. No, that's pre-family though. Maybe that's how he got the gig.
Oh shit. Okay, Tim. Let's get into housekeeping here before we start the fishing. Audacity. I figured out Audacity is a thing. Are you listening to it? If you're on another podcast service and you know somebody that's got, if you're listening to this right now and you know somebody who's listening on Audacity, or you watch us on YouTube and you're like, oh, but most of my podcasts are on Audacity. How come you're not over there? Let us know. Hit us up in the comments. I just
didn't know
found
that
it
was
the
a
other
thing.
day because I was looking to listen to a baseball game, which it seems like they
Oh.
black out anyway. And so I didn't get it. Long story short, I found them and I was like, should we be on Audacity? Because we've been talking this shit for 3 years and been saying, oh, we're on all the major platforms. And now I'm looking at Audacity and they're like, it seems to be a competitor with iHeart on that level, to where they have like local radio stations. And when they were playing baseball, it's on the schedule, it said you could listen to this baseball game if you went to Audacity and went to the website, and then it seemed to be blacked out anyway.
And it's like a play on words because of audio.
Yeah,
I see. Because I was like, why Audacity?
audio. It would be. I'm pretty sure it's Audacity, but it's like audio.
I know when you started saying it, and then I'm just like, you break it down, and I know it's not the same. But then I thought audio ass titty, and you're just like. It's just dumb, but it made me laugh in my head. I know it's not great. I'm not expecting anybody to just be like, "Oh, nice one." It's just I just felt like explaining myself why I laughed.
Right. No, that's why I laugh, because I know you know how like
because
dumb
you're like
it is.
audiosity, and I'm just like, oh, audio ass titty. Yeah, we should probably be over there.
Oh, I know. Podcasts. People listening on podcast services, we need some help over on YouTube. It's like I missed one fucking date. We were on a nice run there, and I missed one date, and the YouTube channel takes a hit. What the fuck? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's our thumbnails or some shit. I don't really know. But hey, help us out. Go over to YouTube. Remember, it's youtube.com/@realaftv. Remember, real like fish and reel. Help us out. Give us a listen. Give us a click. You know, we're for some reason on a downward spiral when we were on an upward climb. So I don't know how the fucking algorithm works, but help us out. Patreon.com. We'll talk about that later, because we got a patreon.com/@realaftv if you want to support us. every other week podcast. Please, if you're listening to this regularly, explain to people that they can go over to YouTube and they can catch the split topic, the random take, and the fishing topic on YouTube split in our off weeks, because we drop the regular podcast every other Monday. If you are new to the podcast, just want to let you know that. And our contact page is up, realaf.tv/contact. Comment, feedback, all that shit. We're listening on social medias, DMS, comments in the YouTubes. We're there. We're watching. We're listening. We're talking. Let's get out of all that hullabaloo and talk about some fishing. Now, Tim, the lakes of the Elite series, that's what we're talking about. Okay.
Yep.
Lakes of the Elites.
Yes.
So between the time that we recorded last and this podcast, they announced that there are going to be, 9? 10? 9 or 10. Either way. Lakes on, and I'm just going to rattle them off here quick at the top.
Okay.
We got Louisiana, the Toledo Bend Reservoir. Texas, Lake Fork. Come on, we've talked about that one. We talk about that one a lot. Oklahoma, Grand Lake O, the Cherokees. And it's literally just a capital O, like Land O Lakes.
And most are just refer to it as Grand Lake.
So
but
that's its official
name. That yes, I know this. I'm just
right. Thank you for saying
this for anybody that's just like, I've never heard of that before. I never heard of that before either. And I looked into it. I'm like, oh, that's Grand Lake. Okay, yeah. I did not know it was like a Lake of the Ozarks type shit.
Oh, sure, yeah. And we'll go into each one. I'm just rattling them off here at the top, right? So that people, if they missed it. So then we got Florida, the Harris Chain of Lakes. They go there. Yep, that's not new to Bass by any means. I don't think any of these really are this year.
No.
Florida, you got the St. Johns River. South Carolina, Lake Murray, one of my favorites to watch. I believe that is the one of my favorites to watch because they have those fucking. Now I'm blanking on it, so I'm just gonna move on. But this is the tree. Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what
I know what you're talking about?
Yeah, those fucking
the trees that are at the shorelines where it's got the big roots.
Yeah. Love it. They're beautiful. And then we got Alabama Lake or Wheeler Lake. God, I always fuck up lakes that have lake after it. Alabama got Smith Lake. New York, Lake Champlain, and New York again with the St. Lawrence River. Those are typically their enders from what I've seen in the last few years. But we don't want to talk about them right now. We will move on to our conversation. Just wanted to hit those off the top and then go, Tim, when you were looking this shit up, did you notice these all seem to be major vacation destinations?
Yes.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, they're very... Dude, that lake, whatever the fuck.
Grand Lake. You can just call it Grand Lake. Yeah, because that
Grand
was what
Lake
it's generally.
In the summer, like they go there in the spring because it's straight up like a Lake of the Ozarks type. There are pictures where there are so many goddamn boats and like a giant river boat. I don't know if it's like a casino as well. But like there are pictures that look absolutely insane. Like it looks like a blast to be there and a nightmare to fish.
That's usually how that goes, right? I mean, but that's why you're using Ozarks because that one's the more like that's the famous one. That one, anybody who's our age and anybody who's in their like 30s, 40s would know Lake of the Ozarks is like the party zone. Like if you're from the Midwest, the Great Lakes area, it's like the Ozarks is where you would go to Cancun it up,
Yeah.
And Girls Gone Wild, made it famous.
Girls Gone Wild. I heard there's a lot of snakes there though.
I don't know. And I don't even know if Girls Gone Wild made it famous. I just wanted to make a 90s reference.
Could be. Girls Gone Wild got famous everywhere. They're just sending in videos.
Right.
Look, I got this girl drunk and she showed her boobies. And then they like just send it to that guy and he makes a bunch of money off of it. And that guy's like a piece of garbage or something.
What a
I don't know.
surprise.
Yeah, I think there's like a whole isn't he the one that's like there's a documentary called The Most Hated Man on the Internet?
Oh, I don't
Isn't
know.
that like
I know the name
about
of that
him?
documentary, but I don't know who it's about,
I
honestly.
thought that was him. It might be somebody else, but I don't know. And at any rate, there's definitely a documentary about him and everybody talking about how he's a piece of shit.
Yep.
So
Like, and what a surprise to come up with a
yeah,
concept
what a
like Girls
surprise.
Gone Wild.
Where you're like, every time a girl shows her boobs, I'm going to put it on a film, and then I'm going to make a bunch of money off of these girls.
Right.
And then later on in life,
And they don't get paid.
the girls are
for
like,
thing.
yeah, that's why OnlyFans exists.
Right.
Well, OnlyFans wasn't actually created for that, but then
that's what it turned into.
That's what it turned into, because the girls are like, we can remember those Too Hot for TV and all this other stuff. All this, I can just make so much money just doing it myself.
Right.
And then I don't have to feel so bad about being exploited. But now, be careful what you wish for, because I think some of them get to be like, I was tricked into it, with the, not trying to go off on a tangent, but I think some of them get to say they were tricked into it. And now what are you going to do?
Oh,
you
I see what you mean.
account,
Yeah, like
you bought a camera,
the
you
Girls
put it
Gone
on there,
Wild.
you did everything, and now you
tricked.
can't.
Yeah.
There's no backtracking of just being like, it wasn't my choice. Yeah, it's 100% your choice.
Yeah, you built that.
The OnlyFans
thing.
I don't know if it's gonna happen though. Maybe they're just happy. They're probably, I don't know.
Oh,
if I got a bunch of money for doing that, I'd be pretty happy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't know that. Is that why? So that Grand Lake you saw was like fucking party zone, huh?
Party zone, yes, but that's definitely more into the summer, I would assume, because the water's going to be relatively cold there. Like it's
yeah.
It stays relatively warm down there, but I think it like drops to cold temperatures at night, which allows the water temperature to cool down. So I don't think it's as big of like a party zone during that time of year. I think most people are still going like, we're going to go to the beaches until it hits the right temperature, and then we'll go party.
Right.
So I might be wrong, but that's one thing that you have to take into account. If I am wrong and they're having that kind of, which I don't think, because I don't know if I've ever watched like coverage really close of them fishing Grand Lake, but I'm pretty sure I have, and I don't remember it being just like, oh yeah, I had this spot marked on my app, my map.
Yep.
But there's a fucking ferry there. I can't fish around.
There's a
this
party
river
ferry
boat.
just sitting on top of my spot. Yeah. I can't recall a lot of Grand Lake footage either.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
But I definitely know that they fished it. Like
it's not new to the Elite series.
I've heard Grand Lake mentioned many times, so I know that they've fished it.
Yeah.
But I can't remember if I've watched coverage of it or I've just heard the pros talking about Grand Lake.
Right. And that's where I am with you too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I start to lose track of the lakes a little bit as you watch.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what, Tim? Hold on. I want to do disclosure here before we jump back into it. Is I was not relying on Wikipedia. I do not rely on Wikipedia. I think this is a general Real AF TV thing, is we research the topics, right? And this is, it's good. It might sound like I'm just reading Wikipedia or that it's just a Wikipedia article. I've heard a few podcasts just be like, oh, you have a podcast? No, you just read Wikipedia. Like I've heard that kind of criticism before, and I just
Yeah.
want to let it know, like, that is not really FTV. Uh, Sometimes if I don't trust the source, I will find multiple sources and I'll go out, and this isn't Wikipedia. If I do use Wikipedia, I usually start there, find their source, go to their source. I mean, if you were here for the full thing, or if you're not catching this at the split, but you're on the full podcast, I just cited a People article that I was able to read that was basically ripping off a New York Times article that I couldn't read because you have to pay for New York Times.
Yeah.
So, like, I still gave the Times credit.
Right.
But I just wasn't for one article, for this one article for brief. I wasn't going to subscribe to the New York Times. So, I don't want, it may sound like Wikipedia from my side as we get into this. I think we're going to probably run out of time given how long we've already been talking. Like, I don't know how deep we're going to get in, but point being is I just felt like we had to make that clear, that never trust one source unless it's a trusted source. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Correct.
Okay. Sorry, Tim. Vacation. I just want to get that out of the way.
Yes.
Dude, it was so hard to find. That plays into what I was just saying, is when doing searches on this, I use multiple search engines every single time. VRBL is coming up, Airbnb, real estate sites. Like, these lakes are hot, dude. They are fucking hot.
They're hot, and well, they're massive. Every one of them is great fishing lakes.
Mm-hmm.
They have multiple species,
Mm-hmm.
Lake Fork and some of these other southern ones are great for fishing eaters too.
For fishing
we
what?
have eaters. We have walleye up here, but like white bass and crappie, you go down there and you catch you panfish, because white bass are technically panfish.
That's right.
So if you catch all those different fish down there, like, you're eating good, and they got
because they're fucking
catfish.
huge.
So it's like everything but bass that they have in those lakes are good to eat. You got catfish and white bass and crappie and then regular bass.
Yeah.
So it's like either you're having a blast catching big bass or you're catching stuff you can eat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a giant body of water. Everybody likes, I shouldn't say everybody, but if you like water, it's a place to go and play and stuff. And we're kind of spoiled here up in Minnesota and Wisconsin when we have so many lakes that we just have an abundance. We, like, all of us have been like, yeah, whatever. We hear about some of the in Minnesota, especially when you hear about like an inner city kid's never been fishing before, we're all like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then and then you go to like a different state and they're just like, most of us have never been fishing, like people like not even inner city, they're just not next to a lake. But here in Minnesota, it's weird because you're just like, you have like 20 lakes in Minneapolis.
Like
the suburb, like you have water everywhere. How have you not just been to the shore once? But it's crazy. I don't know. You never know exactly what's going on. But you got to think too that in these other destinations and stuff, they, from wherever they live, you might have, I don't know, 10, 15 lakes to choose from. And none of them are that great. And then you have this one monster lake that everybody talks about. And then you go, shit, yeah, dude, that's where we need to go. And for the most part, almost all the lakes on this list are not wide open lakes like Mille Lacs is.
Explain that a little bit for the people who aren't, from Minnesota or like kind of don't get it, because I think you're right. You nailed it. I just, a little more detail.
Here, I will give you a crazy ass stat about one of these lakes, right?
Okay.
So when we are talking about that Grand Lake, right?
Okay.
It's like the Lake of the Ozarks. It's big. It's open. It is like, if you look at it on a map, it is almost like it looks like a river. The only difference really is that a river has like a start and a stop, and there's like current and flow. I think this probably has a little bit of current because there's a dam at play.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's not a river. It is a lake. but when you look at it from a topical view, it
Yeah.
looks, because it's
Like
just
if you Google
giant.
Maps it, like for
Yeah,
the, the new general public.
yeah, and so it branches out. But here, I'll give you an idea to like really let it sink into what this looks at like more. Mille Lacs Lake is massive. When you
Huge.
are standing on one side and looking across it, you cannot see with the naked eye the other side of the lake. It looks like an ocean or a great lake. It's huge.
Yeah. Water to the
But it's like a
horizon. Just,
right, but it's like a big round lake.
yeah.
There's not much for bays and stuff. It's very open. So when the wind picks up, you're dealing with a lot of wind, like big waves. It can
Yeah.
get super rough on a lake like Mille Lacs. You
Yep.
can't go out there with a small boat on a big windy day because you're gonna get fucked up. But on a lake like the Grand Lake, even on a windy day, it's not that big of a deal because there's so many arms of, like, think of it like the roots of a tree almost. There's
Yeah,
so
that's a
much
great way to
ground.
put it, dude. Yeah.
So get this, right? Uh I jotted it down here. Lake Mille Lacs shoreline,
Yep.
there's 80 miles of shoreline on Lake Mille Lacs.
Yep.
There's 1,366 miles of shoreline on Grand Lake. So that's like how much, it goes in and
Because
out and goes
every
around.
outlet, like every branch out is a nice chunk of shoreline.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's the surface area of it basically is what it boils down to. It's the surface area that the water has to spread, and the surface area to land ratio, I guess, right? It's crazy. And
Yeah.
do you know how many acres Mille Lacs is? I wasn't
I
ready.
didn't look.
I
I
wasn't
didn't.
prepared for that. So you do that quick while I do this, because we'll stick with Grand Lake, even though it's in the middle of the field as far as like, or it's, third lake I think they're going to. It still doesn't
Yeah.
matter. We're going to keep talking about it because it's our example. So Grand Lake of the Cherokees in Oklahoma is, why can't I can just read this number. Sorry. I was getting in my own goddamn head. 46,500 acres.
46,000.
Yep.
So here's the crazy thing. Mille Lacs is 132,516 acres.
Exactly.
So it's a far larger lake,
Right.
But because of the shoreline being round, it's just an 80-mile circle.
Yep. Exactly what I was hoping was going to happen. I just had I had a feeling that was going to be the case. Fucking wild, right? And
isn't it crazy? Yeah.
Yeah, and almost all of these lakes. Now, I'm not big on Fork. I didn't dive in a ton on Fork, but almost everything like on the circuit, on the elite circuit, it has those bays, those sprawls. It's really cool to look at these maps, I guess. And to tie it in quick before we get into more stats, because of course we're going to go in and we're going to talk about each one a little more. To see these lakes and to really get into it, it goes back to what we were talking about in the last episode, right? Episode 77, where we talked about fish migration. When you look at each of these lakes, though they're big and they're sprawling and they're in the south, the majority of them in the south, and they have these inlets and stuff, they're in wildly different areas. The water clarity is different. There's just all these lakes are super different.
Yeah.
And I think that's where this topic really came from, was like, we were talking about fish migration and how you have to like track fish migration. And we're just talking about we talked a lot about in our lakes here in Minnesota. And we're talking about just like, you had a lot of personal examples in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I was talking about river, I brought like rivers to the table and all this stuff. And now you got to think about, these guys are making a living doing this.
Right.
And I think that's where this really came from, is like, we sat down to podcast about this, We looked some shit up.
Yeah.
These guys literally is their job to do this with
Right.
every lake, and Grand Lake is 46,500 acres.
Right.
With how much shoreline did you say? Like,
Yeah. With 1,003 around, it says 1,366 miles of shoreline. Just so you know, I
oh my
checked it
God.
out. It's 1,565 miles to drive from Minneapolis to Orlando, Florida. So it's like 200 miles difference if you stretched it out to go from
Right.
Minneapolis to the most southern, well, not the most
If
southern
you were
point,
able
but
to
like the most
drive,
southern state.
yeah. But if you
We're
were able
like
to
the most
drive the
northern
entire
state.
shoreline, like if you got in your boat and you just and you went around the shoreline, you drove from Minnesota to Florida, basically.
If you could do the whole shoreline at 60 miles an hour, it would take you a full 24 hours
To get
to do
around.
it. You probably wouldn't, maybe a little bit less than that, because I'm doing the math from this 1,500 miles, so it'd be like
Right.
200
But
miles
yeah,
less than
so
that.
roughly.
But still, which is not something you'd ever be able to do. But here's another thing. So when we're talking about this, we were kind of tossing around this idea of just like, how difficult is it really to do this job? Because some people would be like, oh, bass fishing isn't that hard. Correct? That's where you're not wrong. That's the funny thing, is that
Yeah.
people are just like, bass fishing isn't that hard. You're right. It's not that hard.
Mm-hmm.
But you are trying to beat the best of the best.
Yeah.
Your job is not to go out there and catch one bass. Your job is to go out there and catch a 5 limit fish that is bigger than any of your other competitors.
Right.
And you're not doing it for one day. You are doing it for 2 days. And then if you don't make it past those first 2 days, you're done.
Right.
And then you got to do the third day, and each day is changing, and you have to consistently be able to roll with the punches and figure out this stuff. And, especially like you're not out there using live bait. They're not sitting there with a bobber and hoping that a fish comes and eats it and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I see
They're on
weird.
timers, essentially.
Yeah. There's penalties, there's rules that they can do. There's all this different stuff. They don't get a necessarily full day. There's just weird shit that I hear out there where people just be like, bass fishing isn't even that hard. No, that's why it's the most entertaining sport out there, because when you watch bass fishing, you get to watch people catch fish.
Right.
It's not like you're watching nothing. You're watching them catch fish and you're hoping to see one of the giants get caught.
Right.
Because it's still very hard to go catch a giant,
Yeah.
It's weird when I hear people talk about it. Just like that's their point. It's not hard. No shit. It's awesome. It's fun. That's why everybody loves it. But it is hard to be at the top of the food chain, to be those guys that
Right.
go out there and consistently catch fish. And here's another thing to think about. When we were just breaking all this down, like time of year, everything plays a role. But like, so when we were talking about the migration of the fish, so the fish down there are getting into like the pre-spawn phase. They're getting close to like moving up to, so they'd be like staging
when the
for
elite series starts.
Yeah, because I had it here, like all the dates and stuff.
Oh, sure.
The first like when they go to that Toledo Bend Reservoir,
Yep,
is February 22nd and 25th.
Yeah, so early
through the 25th
for us.
So that's crazy.
Like being a
early for
northerner,
us.
right?
Yeah, that's ice on the lake.
We're
like,
still ice fishing up here.
You don't even need to have your permanent ice house off yet. It's like
right. Good point. Yeah.
So it's like the state knows that it's still safe for you to have a giant ice house with like a dual axle. You have to have a big truck to even be able to pull it. They're still down for having that on the water.
Right.
Or on the ice.
On the ice, yeah.
That's how
But
solid
either way.
it is up here.
Right.
Down there, it never freezes over and everything's starting to stage. It's starting to warm back up a little bit because that's just how things roll down there.
Yep.
Because Shit. I don't know where the hell it went. Oh, I started Googling all this other stuff. That's where it went.
Are you still talking about
So
Toledo? The Toledo Bend?
I am
Which
talking
is
about
in
the Toledo.
Louisiana,
Yeah.
by the way, which
I was just
I don't know if we said that, but it's not Toledo, Ohio. It's just
right.
it's a reservoir in Louisiana.
Yes. Yeah. So instead of wasting time Googling this, I don't remember the exact times, but I went and looked it all up because basically the different regions you can go just like strips of like the different temperatures
Mm,
throughout our climate in the US, and you can see that the spawn happens down there in like uh March. They
mm,
start spawning down in like March. So you're still
mm-hmm.
like way before it. But they start moving in and they start setting up off of like points, and then they're thinking about moving into docks and stuff. That lake is crazy deep in certain spots, so you're dealing with like
Yeah, dude.
floating docks, and you have docks that are over like 60 feet of water in some certain like areas
Holy
and stuff.
shit! Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Yeah, it's crazy. So you have like floating docks over like 60 feet of water, and it's just like shit we don't deal with up here. And then
Right.
like when they're staging and thinking about moving up, think about all that water and stuff, and say, just for an example, say you're like, oh, I'm targeting points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which one? You're talking 1,300 miles worth of shoreline that has all these different branches like a tree root.
Right.
Every one of those that branches off, there's 2 points on
Right.
on each side
Right.
of when it branches in. So, and those are just the main points. There's secondary points as well.
Sure.
There's like some. So you got the main points, and then when you go in, sometimes the shoreline juts out, and you get a secondary point. Stuff like that. There's points everywhere, dude.
There's
And
points everywhere, dude. I
and
know.
to be able to break it down, you got to go out there and you got to figure out what they're keying in on, what they're doing, where they're at, and you have to, like I said, you all can go catch fish. The key is to be the guy that figures out where the biggest ones are sitting. You got to
Right.
go figure out where the big ones are and what they're doing and what they're up to.
Yeah. Right.
Because you're probably going to be able to catch fish
And
everywhere.
multiple days in a row too, with the weather changing and that and however that is going to affect the fish, because remember you only have that window to
Right.
fish in. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Sorry, did you want to go on? Because I was going to go into some more stats because I wanted to say something back to
Yeah.
what you
No,
said.
hit it.
You
Yeah.
said this reservoir is deep. It is. It's deep. It's got 110 max point on it.
Okay.
So to hear you say there's something over 60, a dock that's floating over 60 feet, first of
Yeah.
all, not used to it, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
all of our lakes, they slope in. Like
Yeah.
there's just almost no such thing as a clean drop off
Right.
natural lake here in Minnesota.
I should correct myself real quick and say that might happen at this one. Uh, After I made reference to it, I was going back to like the Grand Lake. Like I did more
Oh,
research on
okay.
that. Grand Lake has like the floating docks in 60 feet of water, but this one totally could.
It could
You
because it's
know,
a reservoir,
yeah,
the like
reservoirs are different.
yeah, they definitely are because they're
Yeah.
made by dams essentially, right?
Hmm.
Um I learned a new term looking up Toledo Bend. Turbid.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Which
just like oh, it's just like stirred up water, isn't it?
yeah, it's the
Turbid
clarity
is
of the
just
water basically. Yep.
yeah.
We'll get into it
Okay.
one day because I wrote it down as a thing to go because I started down the rabbit hole and I went, stop.
Yeah.
You are researching like 10 lakes. You need to stop. um,
Right.
and that's the other thing that I wanted to bring up in this because these lakes are so big too. Like there's different clarities because you were talking about
Yeah.
points. I'm going to go hit points. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's one thing, but there's different clarities because these things are so big. And now I know they have to
Yeah.
take off from a certain area and all this other stuff, but that doesn't mean that there's not different clarities throughout all these, different inlets and outlets and stuff like that. Anyway, so again, another thing you
Yeah.
have to play against.
For sure. Yeah, it's weird shit. I was listening to some of them, and it sounds like, like up here, a lake is a lake, and it doesn't really change. You're not really dealing like a wind blown side can be dirtier, because it's going to stir up stuff. But
Sure.
like with the dam lakes and stuff, like I heard some of the pros talking about, like I was researching some different clips and just hearing what they were talking about, and some of them are just like, yeah, and this, like, you're dealing with like two different things. Like it could be clear, and this was crazy. Dudes from down south, he goes, it could be clear, like, like 3 feet of visibility. Like,
Mhm.
whoa, dude, that's clear.
That's what I was gonna say, but I didn't want to jump in. I
And then
didn't
he's
want to
like,
over jump your
yeah,
reaction. But
right.
yeah, 3 feet was clear.
Yeah. And then it was like, or it could be muddy. And he's like, and a lot of times, like, we're fishing this lake in spring, and we're dealing with muddy because of all the runoff from the rain. And it's like,
Oh,
damn, I didn't even think about that. Like, it's just like all the shit that gets washed into the water makes it all murky.
right,
It's crazy.
right.
And I learned that I have to learn a lot more about reservoirs too. Like, this is another thing. Like, you have to know about all these fish, or like these locations, and you have to know about how fish act on different ones and stuff. And when I was looking at um like Lake Fork is a reservoir that
Mhm.
I don't know if the water is pulled out of it for certain things or what they're using it for.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But like
I
at the
don't
current time,
think I had
it's
that either.
90.83% full. And I
When
was
they go
like,
there.
well, that's what it was registering as right now. But it
Oh,
was just like, and it talks about like the different, and it was just like, oh, we do not talk about lakes in their fullness. We talk about
yeah,
like lakes depths and that it's lower. It's a little bit low this time of
right.
year,
Yeah,
and it gets higher. And they're talking about how full it is. And then when
right.
they're, it's like I've never even heard anybody talk about those terms before, because I've
Yeah,
never
me neither.
been. We don't have reservoirs. Everything we have here is natural lakes.
Right,
So reservoirs are a new thing to me. Completely.
right.
And they're talking to, oh, it's right now it's at 402, and it's like, what is
What
that
does that
number
mean?
even? I didn't get a chance to really dig into it. And they're like, it ranges, normally between like 402 and 404. And I'm
Right.
like, yes, okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. I'm right on
Mhm.
there. Oh,
Yes,
but
numbers.
so you're bringing me, like, my brain's going somewhere with this now, because this is was something that I wrote down, and I just wrote down, like, how come the North isn't making a bigger play for this sort of stuff? Because they were here. Well, technically they were in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
over in La Croix, and it was
Yep.
um
Crizzix.
it was awesome. We went. It was great. There's a
Yeah.
live podcast up, or a
Uh-huh.
podcast on location there. And
Yeah.
now this year, I see Lake Champlain and St. Lawrence again. Everything else is from the south. And
Yeah.
I know why, bigger fish, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But everything you're saying is from a northern someone who grew up in Minnesota fishing, which is one of the best fisheries in the country, right? As far as lake fishing goes.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
denying that. But it is northern fishing because it freezes.
Sure.
And so where I'm going with this is the field is very mixed. I mean, look at the Elite Series champion right now is Canadian, right?
Right. Yep.
So obviously you have to study and learn and get to know all these new terms that the South has to know how it's going to
Right.
affect the fish.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
you
also
got to be.
largemouth. These other two, these ones in New York, Champlain and Lawrence,
Yeah.
usually smallmouth events.
Right. And you got to be ready to throw some of that. Like, if you're strictly fishing in Minnesota or Canada and the only thing you ever fish for is bass,
Mm-hmm.
your setups are not ready to throw the baits, some of the baits that you're talking about when you go down there. Because some of their swim baits they're throwing
Mm-hmm.
are musky baits up here. And if you're not,
Oh
if you've
shit!
never thrown musky baits up here,
Yep.
you don't know what that's like when you're going down there. You
Right.
got
Right.
you got 10 pounders that are inhaling like 11-inch shad style, where they're thick like this,
Jesus.
they're big like that. The bait itself is like 6 to 8 ounces,
Right.
which is way bigger than any bass lure that you're throwing up here. You
Way
know,
bigger.
so it's like you got to have a whole different setup, and you got to be ready for any of that stuff. And some of the guys
Right.
down south are ready for that, but then vice versa. Some of those guys down south
Right.
aren't necessarily ready to come up here and drop shot. They're like, what do you, or like a Ned rig.
Right.
They're like, you know,
Uh-huh.
what are you talking about? Is you put on that little bitty weight with that 3-inch stick and it don't even move. You just cast it out there. Boy, how do you even sneak up on the fish? They could see me coming from a mile away. Clear water down there is 3 feet, boy.
Right.
Just, but it's like, it gives it a different mix. But I think sometimes the lakes that they choose, I don't know if it's necessarily like the northern lakes are pushing for it, or if it's just that bass like tries to set up like, oh, we're just gonna, make it a little bit more tough. And I think honestly, I think we have an easier time going from up north down south. It seems like
Yeah.
we are more well versed group up here,
Mm.
because there's so many different lakes and stuff that we have
Mm-hmm.
options to go fish.
Right.
Where
Like
like
streams and lakes and
well, yeah, I
rivers
mean, for
and
example, my home lake, I get to fish, and I fish that a lot because I don't have means of fishing other stuff currently. But if I had my own like legitimate boat, which I hopefully will soon,
nice.
there, it's possible for me where I live right now, 40, 50 lakes within like an hour and a half drive,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So I got plenty of options. Some of those guys get like one lake and they're trying
Yeah,
to
like
fish
you
all
were
these different
saying.
spots.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just one giant lake, so they get to fish all this different structure and all these different elements
But
on
you have
this
to
one
get to
lake.
that one lake first.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's a whole different ball game. And I think right now it almost seems like when I was looking at this, how they have it scheduled is just like, we're going to have all this southern stuff.
mm-hmm.
Some of it they're throwing a wrench into, where they're just like, two of them are back to back. They're like a week apart.
Oh, yeah.
So they're just like bam, bam, and then you have to completely switch it up,
Right.
even though you're right down the road from where you're at. You know,
Yeah.
they have which was it? The Leesburg, Florida, is the Harris chain of lakes.
Yep.
Big chain of lakes. You're fishing all these different lakes, and that's what it is. You're fishing lakes.
Yeah. There's 8
Eh,
lakes on that chain of lakes.
Right, right. So you got 8 different lakes. Those are the kinds where people start and they're just like, oh, I like this lake more. Like this time of year doing this, I feel really good about this spot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they'll start, because they all start from the same spot, and they'll drive like 4 lakes over. They'll spend an hour and a half of their day or their morning
Just trying to get
driving,
2
because they're
more.
like,
Yep.
when I get to this lake, it's going to be a really good time. I can get like 4 or 5 fish in the boat. They're all going to be big, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be worth that drive, So that's another
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like, you definitely need to know where you're going,
Right.
So get there.
Because not
But
even, yeah. So you make a really good point there. It's like, not only do you need to know the lake and how to fish it and get with the fish, but as an Elite Series professional, you have to know how to navigate that lake really well too, because you are on a timer. You do only have a limited window to fish
right.
for how long, and there's penalties if you don't get back and all that stuff that you already said. So you have to
Yep.
know how to navigate that lake really well too. And that was one of the bigger things. I think it's more on these reservoir lakes. I don't know for sure, but I was reading up on them, and I'm not reading about fishing. I'm just reading about the lakes. Like, I'm just gathering lake data basically.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, yeah, timber, flooded vegetation, there are these hazards. It can be very
Yeah.
difficult to navigate these because they go up and down and they have
Oh yeah.
they like submerged tree if the water's high enough. But if
Yeah.
they have to open
Right.
up the dam and let some out, there goes 3-4 feet of water, and the next thing you know, now you're having to dodge all these
Right.
stumps.
Yeah. And they don't mark all that shit all the time.
No? Oh,
No.
you mean like with buoys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad hit a rock when we went to the lake over one time. And
Oh
like that
yeah.
was the end of that.
Now
So
the boat's stuck on. I remember you saying that because now the boat's
yeah.
stuck. It'll
Yeah.
never, it'll never
Right.
get back.
Yeah. But no, so the point that I was making about how like you got a week turnaround. So they're at
Oh
that
yeah,
chain of
sorry.
lakes. You have that's okay. That you have that chain of lakes and they're fishing all those lakes. They're just inland lakes. It's not much different. It's a lake. It's pretty straightforward. You know what's up. The one a week later in the same state, they are going to the river, the St. Johns River, which is a tidal river. It has tides.
Dude,
It's a river. Stuff moves in. It's completely different ball game.
so
And who
different.
knows what's going on there?
What,
The weird part
seriously,
too.
who knows what's going on there? I was
So
reading about that lake. It's fucking crazy.
yeah, and the weird part too
River.
is like when you're looking at the different times of years because they start up a little bit more north. Um,
Mm.
they're still in the south, but it's like more north of those Florida spots.
Oh, right.
They are pre-spawn on the first couple of stops, and
Mm-hmm.
then when they move down Florida,
Mm-hmm.
spawn already happened. So now you went from
Oh, they're
pre-spawn
post-spawn
here.
now.
Now you went from pre-spawn here, and then you moved down, and you're post-spawn in Florida.
What?
Except for on that river. I don't know Tyler Rivers. What's going on there? That's another thing. Like I don't have the answers for anybody. This isn't us trying to teach you how to fish these lakes.
No.
This is us simply pointing out like how difficult it really is to be these fishermen because now
Mm-hmm.
you're on a tidal river that should be post spawn. I don't know what happens in tidal rivers.
Right.
Do they spawn at all there? Are they swimming into a different stream to go and spawn? Are they
Right.
are they are they truly post spawn or are they up in those streams ready to come back out? And you can still go in there and find them on their beds because they started spawning a little bit ago and who knows. It
Right.
also goes based off of water temperature. So the time of year doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be spawning. It's all about the weather trends and what has happened and
Uh-huh.
if it warmed
Mm-hmm.
up and made them move or whatever's going on. So and then with the tidal river, is it really just the streams? Do the streams even move that much? Like if you spawn, are you making a spawning bed where the tide can go in and out? And if so, if you got eggs that you're protecting, do the eggs move with the tide? It's just like I don't know anything about it, but I was like, that raises so many questions.
So many.
And you better have your poop in a group, bro, because you got 1 week to get over there, and 1 week is when the next tournament is. There's practice days before that.
Yep.
So these guys, if they make it to championship Sunday or whatever it happens to be, it's not always Sunday because the
Right, but
days
that's
get
the
screwed
most
up.
common one. Yeah.
Right. So if you make it to championship Sunday, perfect. Bada bing, bada boom. You have 2 or 3 days to move over, get everything going, and then you got to go and fish and try to like learn as much as you can before the next thing goes. You have to have
Right.
all your stuff kind of ideas of what you can and can't do, and you try to learn it, but you have the turnaround to go fish a body of water that is so different is got to be
Mm-hmm.
so tough if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Obviously if you're an experienced angler and you've done all these things, you've met all this stuff. But talk about some of these rookies when they go out and they're making these moves and stuff. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, damn, first year, this is tough. And obviously these are rookies on like the elite series or whatever.
Right.
And you don't just go straight to the elite series. So they probably do have some experience and stuff, but
Right.
it's a tough gig. And I think what I was kind of getting at was my theory on how they set it up was almost like we're gonna let everybody do all this southern stuff, and you're
Mhm.
gonna go catch the largemouth. I think everybody's got a good grasp on how you catch largemouth. These are Elite Series anglers, and then we're gonna really separate the the angler of the year by
Mm,
making them go and fish a completely different way
right.
for the last two stops up in New York,
Right.
and one of them on a river and the other in a lake. Like
Right.
we're gonna hit you with both forms of fishing, both forms of bodies of water, you know,
Yeah.
the two extremes that New York has to finish it off.
Yeah.
You
Well, in
know,
the pre and post too, like the spawning, right?
right?
The pre-spawn, the post-spawn,
Yeah.
like that shit
Well, and
too.
those are all when you get later in the year with that. Those are very post spawn because well, no, I shouldn't even say that. It's not
Mm-mm.
very post spawn because you're moving so far north.
For no. Mhm.
Post spawn, um, spawn normally happens around like June there, and you're fishing in there in August, so it's not that post spawn.
Right.
But it could if it stayed cold in New York. It could be.
Good.
We've had spawn for bass move into like middle of June, where
Sure.
normally it's like late May, early June.
Yeah.
So if theirs is normally middle of June and then it gets pushed out to the beginning of August, dude, they could be like right there. It's
Yeah.
weird. You don't
Right.
know.
They
So
might
that's
not be as
another
spawned
thing.
out as you think
Yeah.
they could be come
Yeah, so
August.
that's another thing. Think about that when you're talking about how close everything is. What if the weather is crazy and you're getting close to the spawn, and that's another two that are only a week apart.
Mhm. Mhm.
Week one, it's whatever they're like finishing up spawning,
Mhm.
and week two, the next spot is almost like it's not even in a 1 week span. You're on a different body of water. It's almost like a different time of year. Like
Mm.
everything changed.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
these preconceived notions of like, oh hell, the fish were up shallow.
Mhm.
Just be like, not on this body of water. This body of water was 5 degrees warmer than that last week.
Right.
It's
Right.
all it's weird shit that's all very hard to try to keep together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough stuff, dude.
Yeah, it is for sure. And
And
oh, go ahead.
I gotta say too, like I forgot to say it earlier when I was talking about like the points and stuff.
Yeah.
If you are a fisherman, go and pull up one of these lake maps
Yeah.
and look at it
Yeah.
and tell me that you're not overwhelmed as a motherfucker. Dude, I looked at it and I'm just like, holy shit. 1,366 miles of shoreline. And if they're thinking about moving up on it, you're like,
Right. Right.
they move up shallow.
Right.
Which part of this shoreline do you think is prime real estate? Like, you can eliminate water and stuff, but even when you break it down, there's still so much damn water. It's like,
Seriously though.
it's like, I mean, I shouldn't even say water. There's so much good locations. And you would have to assume too, with 46,000 acres of water versus Mille Lacs's 136,
Right. Right.
that the number of bass per acres of water are probably comparable.
Sure.
So with all that shoreline, you got to think that those fish are like grouped up in certain areas and there's dead space everywhere,
Right.
where you're going to have some small fish that don't really know what they're doing and just kind of like splitting off,
Right.
and that are just like those fish, natural selection. Those idiots got no chance,
Right.
You're catching
Exactly.
the dumb ones that aren't going to make it.
And so you said earlier that there was, like we're we're not here to teach you about each, or like teach you every lake or something like that. We're
Right.
here having a discussion, and Real AFTV is about teaching and talking it out, and like failing or making mistakes, learning from them,
Right.
however you want to put it.
Yeah.
And you're right, we can't teach you how to fish every one of these lakes. There will be a day, probably, because this is, we can't get into all of it. Just
Sure.
this would go on for 3 more days,
Right.
because we could do an hour on each lake. And that's
Mhm.
what I think we're getting at here is
Yeah.
there is actually a teachable moment here, or we are still, doing the Real AFTV teaching thing here by
Yeah.
saying, look at this, look, here's a sport that takes a lot of talent and practice and routine, probably, that people may not see it as a sport, in the sense that this is not a physically elite athlete, to which I would
Right.
say baseball players aren't necessarily either in a lot of cases. You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
But nobody would call baseball a simple sport, or
Right.
nobody looks at the MLB and goes, I can do that, unless you actually really made an effort to do that. And
Right.
and I think, that's really what we're trying to teach here and drive home, is that like this is so much work. Check this out. I want to go back to St. John's because it blew my fucking mind doing the research on this thing.
Yeah.
It's the longest river in Florida at 310 miles. Okay, whatever. Three,
That's a long
what?
that's a long river when you're talking just a straight shot, dude.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not saying that it's small. I'm just saying, like,
Right.
okay, yeah, okay, 310 miles. Look at what we were just talking about with the Grand Lake over in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
So it's like 310 shouldn't be anything crazy. But here it is, dude. Visibility, 3 feet, 2.95 is what I saw. So again, this is just
Yeah.
normal on that lake. This is, or river, sorry. It it's so slow. It's so sprawled out. If you look at it from the aerial map, it looks like a lake. It's like it has a bunch of pools on it, right?
Yeah.
And you said it's so slow that it's less than a 30-foot drop in elevation from beginning to end. Think about that. It's a
Yeah.
river that flows downhill, and the flow is 310. The length of it is 310 miles, and from beginning to end, it's less than a 30-foot drop. Now, I
Yeah.
didn't do the math on that, but think about
Right.
how flat that is.
Yeah.
That's
Well, it's like a drop it's a foot every mile,
every
right?
100 miles.
Well, no, a foot every mile, right? If it drops
Oh,
30
yeah. Okay.
feet.
30. Yeah. I'm bad at math. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Like
still, only a foot
yeah.
a mile? Yeah.
Right. That's
That's
what
a
you're right. Good job.
it
That,
goes down 1 foot every 5,000 some feet in length.
right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Isn't that nuts? It also
Yeah.
flows north. So it's not
Yeah.
like the majority of the rivers in the United States,
Okay.
because most flow south.
Yeah.
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 And
That is
you
crazy.
you said it was a tidal river.
Yeah.
So guaranteed 2 times a day,
Yeah.
the flow fucking changes direction.
Yeah.
That's
So you're
so when
like,
you were talking about the in and out of the tidal, that's
yeah.
the tide that has that big of a pull, and this
And
thing is
so
so
fish,
flat and it's so fucked up. It also
yeah.
said that even a few days of high Sustained winds can reverse the flow. Dude.
So that makes because that kind of like positions. So just real quick,
Yeah.
I did oofta.
Yeah.
Wind and current move the plankton. Bait fish feed on plankton. Big fish feed on bait fish. It's like a chain reaction. It all
Yeah. It's
moves
the food web. Yeah, dude.
with the current and the flow.
Right.
And that's kind of like setting you up on certain points. Like everything's moving in, like, so it's like they're on a point on like an ambush spot on where when the plankton gets pushed over and then the fish that are eating the plankton, everything kind of just moves over that area. They get ambushed. And that bait ball, they're just waiting for that shit to blow through. So, um, you know, they could be on that point on the east side. They could be on that point on the west side. They could be on the secondary point because they know when the current changes, it makes more sense for me to swim 300 feet that way and wait for the shit to move. Like those same fish, you could catch them on that body of water, hypothetically speaking. I don't know for sure, but like just based off of the little bit of knowledge you just dropped right there, it's like they could, a lot of times in the lakes, you're not depending on the time of year, you're not necessarily dealing with them like moving down the shore. You're dealing with them kind of moving in and out. Like they'll kind of come shallow at a certain point of the day and then they'll go deeper at a certain point of the day. But with all that movement, they might be moving like shallow plus 300 feet that way and then deep plus 300 feet the other way. Or maybe 300 feet the other way again because the current switched, or I don't even know, dude. I've never dealt with anything like that. I don't know.
I know.
I've never fished a body of water where the current changes with only based off of the wind. So I don't know if that's how, if I talk to a pro and they just be, if they just be like, calm down, how things change with wind. That's what happens here. And I'd be like, oh, okay, perfect.
Okay.
Or they just be like, is it like the wind? And they just go, no. Who
right.
knows?
But to also know that the tide pulls on it too, right? Yeah. So no matter what, it's going to change unless the wind is strong enough. Like what?
Right. It's who knows? And for sure, 2 times a day it's going to change. And then if you know what times a day it changes or
which
where things set up. Yeah. Like I know I've heard Ike talking about it too, where he's just like, oh, I know that at this time of day that's going to move and I'm going to be here. And he's had it figured out because he's done stuff like that. But he's talking about like New York because that's like where he's from.
Up in the New England
So it's
area,
that kind of title shit. So it's like, you got to feel for that. And you definitely have an advantage if you know. But I thought this was interesting too. Like Bassmaster was talking about all these lakes. And it says the legendary St. John's River is up next after that last one. It says the timing of these events should make different strategies and techniques viable beyond the tried and true sight fishing methods that have ruled early events in years past. So basically they're just like, yeah, the timing, because the lake before that you were just being like, I'm just going to try to find fish in the shallows and fish for them is not going to work here because the tides are going to change and things are going to go different directions and the water's going to be all murky. So good fucking luck. It's like, yeah, you got a win last week, but try it again.
Right. Which is why it probably stays like locked in, I would guess. Like I'm guessing that one's just locked in all the time. Before we hang this up, I wanted to point out I was very surprised. So there's only the 2 in New York, and you kind of alluded to this before. All the other southern runs, like the part that starts the year, dude, it's like all the same fish. Like you said, there's way more than bass in there. Yeah, there is. But they're all crappies, sunnies, bass, cats, and then, stripers. So like I call them in that area though. It's like every single one of these lakes fucking had it in there. And I was just like, Every one of these lakes has the same species of fish in it. It's so
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. I was looking, it's all because it's reservoirs, so it's all stocked.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's
dude,
all that
I
Florida.
noted that mentally. That was like, oh, a lot of these are dams, reservoirs. You know, a lot of these have dams
Yeah.
on it. Like the first thing you read about is the dam that did this, and then the dam that did that, and this is how we have this lake now.
Yeah.
Fuck, I did not
They
think of
stock
that.
them. Yeah, and they stock them. That's why that's that Florida strain of largemouth, because they're stocking them with the Florida, like literally fish that would be from Florida.
Yeah. So
They're
Lake Fork,
stocking.
they brought in that Florida strain of
Yeah.
bass, and now they're fucking Texas giants.
And now it's just a bass factory. Yeah.
Right.
They're it's just a giant body of water with like perfect structure that never gets cold, so
Mm.
they just keep, well, not never. They have
Right,
that
but I know what you
weird
mean.
stretch, but yeah. They have
It's
instincts. It
right.
gets cold, the fish just move to where it's comfortable or whatever. But
Right.
there was uh, this other Smith Lake in
Mm-hmm.
Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
That one again, I bet it has a ton of different shoreline too, because that one truly looks like, even like more so of roots than
Yes.
that other one.
You know how
It's like a,
roots spawn little roots sometimes?
yeah, it looks like a varicose vein of Alabama's map. It's just like, man, that's crazy looking. But that one, it states that, um, f- what does it say? I should just read this. The elite will
Yeah.
head to Lewis Smith Lake in Coleman, Alabama, for an event where big spotted bass are likely to play a key role.
Oh.
And spotted bass are actually the hybrid of a largemouth and a smallmouth,
Oh, are they?
and they don't get as big as largemouths by themselves.
Right.
But it says that, has always been known for its number of spots, but the size of its bass has increased greatly in recent years due to its presence of blueback herring as main food source.
Mm.
So I don't know if they like stock the blueback herring now or
Right.
what, but it sounds like they get bigger. Um, so you're dealing with some good ones, like how Mille Lacs has giant smallmouths.
Yeah.
So you're still dealing with big ones.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
So I've
Google.
heard,
Uh,
well, that's probably for a different episode, but I've also heard them called mean mouth. So maybe the mean mouth is
yeah, mean mouth makes sense
just a
because the
different
spotted
word
bass has the temperament of like a smallmouth. A
of a
smallmouth
smallmouth. Yep.
fights hard, and
Yep. But they got
um
that little bit of extra girth to them, extra
and
mouth to them.
and I've heard some of the pros say that that's their favorite to fish, because
Oh,
they're like,
really?
it's got the size, the
Mm-hmm.
sheer fight of a largemouth, but with the temperament of a smallmouth.
Right. That sounds
Uh,
fucking awesome. Got to keep
yeah.
my eyes on Lake Smith or on Smith Lake.
So the game, you can even like kind of see it in the face. It looks a little bit more. The official 11-pound spotted bass is the record.
That's a big
That's
fish.
the world record though. The
Right.
world record largemouth is like 20.
Right. Yep.
So, you know, you're dealing with fish that don't get as big, but that's, I wonder if that plays a role too, because I know, um I would assume spotted bass have a different temperament. I wonder if it's like one or the other. Did they take after mom or dad? Just like where could they be? Because
Right.
the smallmouth a lot of times like to have a little bit deeper water and be around rocks and stuff, and the largemouth sometimes like to sit up in the weeds and stuff. You can catch either, vice versa. Who knows? But it's like, are the spotted bass just different altogether? I don't know.
Right. I don't know either. But that again, that'll be for another episode. I do like how
Yeah.
they make the transition from Smith Lake, and then they take their summer break, and then they go up north to do what turns into smallmouth tournament for a lot of it, because Smith Lake's the only one in the south that has smallmouth on it, from what I could tell. And like you said, the hybrids then come into play, which makes a lot of sense, because big largemouth lake, but it actually has smallmouth in it too, and there you go.
Right.
I like how they make that transition from, I just thought that was cool. So anyways, we're getting really close. I mean, we're probably over an hour already. We're over an hour. Wrap us up, Tim. I mean, what else did you want to talk about? We're not going to get into any more details. We don't got time. We got to wrap it up.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's about it. Like every year seems to have different challenges and stuff for them. And it seems like this year they really wanted to just be like, we're going to try to keep everything for the southern lakes, which kind of stinks for the northern fishermen that they have to travel down there all the time. And the guys that live down south are just already down there, except for the last little leg of it. But
right.
Yeah, it should be an exciting year. It sounds like a lot of these lakes, they have, big bags, so it's gonna be visually cool to see them holding up monsters instead of dinks. That they're that some of the tournaments up north can produce. If it's a rough day of fishing, the guy that weighs in the most might just have a couple of 5-pounders, and everybody's like, oh, look at those. And then a couple of 5-pounders is gonna be necessary to even make it to day 2.
Right.
Down south.
Yeah.
So yeah,
for sure.
And I'm like second guessing myself about the spotted bass. I'm almost positive it's 2, but maybe I'm using the wrong terminology. So I apologize if I got that wrong, but now I'm like, is that right? The spotted bass is the 2 together.
Oh. Well, we'll correct it in an episode maybe coming up. Let's do that. Actually, leave comments and shit on that, because we've been thinking about that. We've been thinking about how to like work that into the show, and like, because we know we're not perfect. So a lot of this is coming off the dome. Some of it's coming off the dome from experience, right? And then so you try to dig back in your brain before we're like live while we're recording, because we just go live to tape. And I get it. Leave a comment, reallyf.tv/contact is how you can tell us directly. We're watching it. We watch the emails. Yeah. So Tim, you good? You wanna get in the second half here in comedy, and we're gonna have a nice merger here, because you sent me one of the best reels, and it was just
got him on a jig, a little balling out 15 foot, and I'm wearing the hat, and I slacklined every bit of it.
Come to the second half. We're gonna play that whole thing. This is where fishing stand up. We're gonna make a smooth transition here with a little break in the middle for patreon.com/reallifetv. Remember Real Like Fishing Real? So what do you say? We gonna switch over to comedy?
Let's switch it over.
Let's do it. Here we are, patreon.com/realaftv. That's right, patreon.com/realaftv. Real Like Fishing Real. We are on Patreon, and we are coming to tell you, and by we, I mean me and Tim, Real AFTV podcast here, coming to you to say we have a Patreon as low as $1 a month, but hey, you could go up to $100 if you really wanted to get crazy with it. It's there. Go over to our website, realaf.tv. You can find the Patreon link right there, or go to Patreon and look us up, Real AFTV, Real Like Fishing Real. And we have things like, for $50 a month, we will customize, what kind of tackle is it, Tim? We have some in the warehouse right now that we haven't actually ran out.
A lure. Yes.
A lure. Thank you.
Is a crankbait.
Crankbait.
Yes, we will customize a crankbait for you.
at
Yes.
the $50 tier. Also, Patreon, if you're new to the whole Patreon thing, if you're on a podcast, you're probably not that new to it. But Patreon is something that you can jump in and out of. Like if you do $50 this month, bam, you get the custom lure, but you don't want to do that for the whole year. You jump down to the $5 a month tier where you're going to get early access content. You can help vote on the random take, one of the random takes for the month. And, we'll keep up with you on Patreon as well. Like just a direct Patreon contact. There's communication you do only through Patreon. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you're new, there's just a little intro to it.
Yeah. And to clarify that custom painted lure is a fully custom painted lure, like the pattern and everything. That won't be just something that we have a lure that we just like write Real AF TV out.
Yes. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for clearing that up, because yes, it's a slug, for lack of a better word, right now, and it will be turned into something.
Right.
I'm not good at the whole fishing lingo, so maybe Tim, you could evaluate on that a little, or like elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now it has no color, and I will give it color.
There we go.
It will look like a bait fish imitation of some sort. It might not be exactly colored. It might not be realistic. Some of that stuff out there that the different companies work with makes different stuff, but it will be a custom painted lure, and it won't look like dog shit. Because not to be like, too full of myself, but I have some talent.
You have some artistic talent. Yes. Yeah, very true. If you know friends and family and stuff like that got a few bucks to kick our way, let them know. RealAF.tv. Scroll down a little bit. There's the Patreon link. It'll shoot you right over. Sign up for a little bit.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Real AF TV podcast, a show about fishing and random takes from the land of 10,000 lakes. If you are not being welcomed back, but welcomed to, then hello, Friday listener. Hello, Split listener. We are an every other Monday podcast, and you have stumbled upon the random take. Primarily, we do fishing stuff over here. And guess what? You clicked on some stand-up shit. We're going to blend stand-up with fishing right now. But Tim, you got to give us the build-up. Like, what's going on before I play this clip? Because I'm not even fully sure, but I've listened to it several times. It's great.
So, and when we actually got to witness the weigh-ins, firsthand. When we went to the
Elite Series event in I just said in the last one. We went to Wisconsin on the Mississippi River. We'll just do that.
Yep. So, we went to that river event in the Elite Series, and the weigh-ins, you bring in your fish, they do the weigh-ins, and I forget, do you remember that guy's name that holds the mic all the time?
Oh my gosh. No, I forget his name now off the top of my head, but he's the MC of B.A.S.S. Generally speaking, he's the MC of B.A.S.S.
Right.
Because when they're doing the weigh-ins, for anybody who's missing it or who clicked on this because we're talking about comedy and you wanted to hear something about comedy, when you're at a Bassmaster Elite Series event, there's a stage. Like, there's a stage with a scale on it, and they bring the fishers up and they got their bag and they chat and they get to mix it up there. And there's an MC, and shit, I can't remember his name right now. We'll get you later.
Right.
But yeah, there's an event. Like, when we went, we sat in the stadium seats. We watched the guys bring up their bags. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun.
And is this, I don't know the fisherman either. Is it Jared Swindell? They just called him G. Oh, and with the beard, like, I don't remember Jared with a beard.
Oh, okay.
But now this guy has a beard and glasses, and it's like, I it's hard to tell who I'm
It is
looking
super hard to identify who this person
Yeah, so
is.
sometimes it's
I was
hard to
hoping it
tell.
said in like the video caption or something like that.
It just says G explains Champlain, however you say it, in a few words. Is the caption on the thing.
Oh, okay.
But basically he comes in for the weigh-in and he didn't have a good day. So he's talking about like how it went. And basically kind of this alludes to what I was talking about a little bit with some of the southern guys that aren't ready to do some of the northern fishing. He's got a joke right away about the spinning rods.
Yeah.
And how like he kept getting hung up and stuff. So it's like it causes some issues with these guys that are not familiar with what they're doing. But yeah, he had a rough day and he basically just was like hits him with the stand-up. We saw it when we were there firsthand where they just kind of say stuff and nobody had anything good to say. They're just like, yeah, rough day. Hopefully we'll get back out there and long drive home. Because I won't be making it to Champion Sunday, but I had fun. You guys have a great fishery here, and I can't wait to come back. Thank you. That kind of stuff.
Right. Yep.
And then
that summed up almost every speech.
And then G comes and hits him with this.
Caught him on a jig, a little balling out 15 foot, and I'm wearing the hat, and I slacklined every bit of it. I said, boy, this ain't no spinning rod. Surprise, you little hooker. And then I just turned the rod straight at him, just did it like a third grade pencil sharpener, just I'm like, yeah, we ain't playing now. I'm tired of spinning rods. If I ever fall out of an airplane, I want 3 spinning rods with drop shots tied on them because you will not make it to the ground. You'll be hung up somewhere. Them things wrap up in that boat when you run. Chris Angel couldn't. O.J. Simpson's lawyer can't figure out how to get the knots out when I got there. They're tied up everywhere. I'm like, I just ran 300 yards, and now I'm retying again with my bad eyes. And I sit out there thinking about Champlain. I think that's a French word, and it stands for like flat-bottom boats or something like that, because it's a rough place. And then I found out Woodstock wasn't too far from here, and I said, well, ain't that where they wrote the song Flat-Bottom Girls? Huh? That's the men bringing their wives out here fishing when it's windy. That's what happens to you. I promise you. I spent more time in the air than I spent in the seat out there. This place beats me down. I said, I should have went to Woodstock, got on that stuff they was in, just drifted around out here. But the more you think out here, the madder you get. Now I'm understanding why so many liquor stores between here and the campground. I'm just saying. You may have cracked the code.
It's so good. You can hear he's kind of workshopping it, but he's already had this going. Like he just workshops. Chris Angel. Nah, I'm gonna use the OJ part. That'll hit harder.
Yeah, just giving a couple of examples, but like there's so many jokes in that little bit of time too. And
they were rapid fire, just
rapid. Some of them, maybe a little. Some of it's a little bit corny, but you got to give him credit where credit's due.
Yeah, for having that ready. I mean, that was like a minute, and I don't know. It's a minute at the very least. It was a tight minute. He just had jokes.
Tight
like
bam,
minute,
bam, bam,
dude.
bam, bam. Just bam, bam, bam. Did not give anybody any room to breathe. Just doosh, 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 doosh. Yeah, that one joke though is maybe like one of my favorite things I've ever heard about the spinning rods. Just if I ever fall out of an airplane, I want 3 spinning rods with me because you will not hit the ground. You're gonna get hung up somewhere.
I know. I loved that. So I don't even get all of it because he says something about slackline because I don't know what slackline. I know.
Oh, so
I've heard of it, right? But
yeah, so like I think what he's talking about with the drop shot is you have your hook. There's line to the hook, and then there's line from the hook down to the weight.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he's hooking it up on his rods or whatever, but you also have that hook, and how they set all their lines on their rod, and then you just like it's almost like a bungee cord that just kind of straps them down to the deck.
Oh,
so you have like 10 on one side, 10 on the other side.
Right.
And I'm sure he just hits, you're hitting those big ass waves. Bam, bam, and stuff's kind of wiggling and wobbling, and then you get there and like everything's hung up. I know what he's talking about. I put my rods down in like the corner of a boat, and I kind of like laying them on each other, and I don't drive that far, and you go to like grab it. You're just like, how the shit did this line get tangled around that? And it's like sometimes the line has done some of the weirdest shit.
It's like keys in your pocket. Sometimes you pull them out and you're like, how in the fuck did that happen?
Exactly. There have been more than one occasion where I just go, what are the fucking odds? It's like I don't have anything specific, but it's like something where the line went someplace so crazy in such a short amount of time. You just go, I couldn't have done this if I tried. It's insane. So I totally get what he's talking about, where you're bouncing around and it gets tied up and stuff. But yeah, the jokes.
That's funny.
And then he's just like, boy, it is rough out there. And it's just like, yeah, I get it now too when I'm looking at the lakes that you're used to fishing, where it's all these different branches. You have all this, even on a really windy day.
You can go
Even still, if you're not in, there's not the distance for the waves to pick up. It's not this giant open body of water where those waves are consistently getting bigger as they roll across the water.
Right.
And then you're dealing with just if you ever seen like the Lake of the Woods or Mille Lacs, those waves can get really, really big. And it's crazy for a freshwater body, or like for a fresh body of water, how big those are. And you're just
sometimes you can hear the motor leaving, like,
oh yeah,
you can tell when the motor leaves. And especially with these trollers, it's really funny to watch these pros that are mic'd up during the windy days, because you hear that trolling motor leave at every damn it, I want to say crest, but trough, every trough, you just hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I've been there before. I've done
I bet you have.
But my dad's boat sits higher in the water, so I have less to play with. They're in a bass boat where that trolling motor is already on the water. So you're talking about that motor is coming like a good 3.5 feet up out of the water. Like the front of the boat is that much higher out of the water to make that happen.
And then he makes it, and all on that, he makes that flat bottom girl reference. It's like so good, like that. I love jokes where you take a pop reference and you purposely fuck it up.
Yeah.
Just knowing that the audience is going to get it,
Right. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. It's just like, it's a flat. I think that's what they're talking about.
I think that's what that is.
The boat's going to be flat bottom because it's just been getting slapped, and then what else gets slapped? Oh, a butt. A flat bottom butt. You know what I'm talking about? It just
and you're like, that's a Queen song, right? Flat bottom girls.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not flat, but I get it. And you did it on purpose. I like it.
Yeah. And then he had a bad day, so he's basically just like, I'm thinking about going over to Woodstock and getting fucked up. You got a lot of liquor stores here. So what's on my mind right now is going over to Woodstock or going to the liquor store. But either way, I'm getting fucked up. I was planning on being here on Sunday, and I didn't make it to Sunday, but we'll see. I try to make it to Sunday. You know what I'm saying?
And his voice is good on. He's good on the mic. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. He delivered it very well when he just got up there, and I'm glad that the guy didn't, just say that this is the mic, and I'm glad he didn't just go, what do you think? I got hung up and all this stuff. It's just like, you got hung up. I'm glad that he just held the mic out there and just let him do his thing.
Yeah.
Like
the MC. Again, forget his name. I should have Googled him quick. Well, yeah. But yeah, he knew it. He knew what was going on. He just he just let him go. He's like, all right, I got this one.
Yep. He just gave him his minute.
Yep.
Do your jokes.
Yep. It was great. And to throw back quick, episode 27 was the only time we've actually had anybody on. No, that's not true. One of our few times that we've been joined by someone else. Episode 27, we did stand-up comedy with a stand-up comedian, Nathan Holtz. We grew up with him.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Go check out that episode. This one, we're just diving in, picking apart, playing, having fun with stand-up comedy. As far as I'm concerned, Tim, what were you thinking? Because I got a bunch of shit written down. But
what was I?
Yeah, I mean, like, where did you? I mean, obviously, we can't sit here and talk about this stand-up session for 30 minutes or 45
Oh yeah,
minutes
no,
or
we're
whatever.
done. That was the end.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm kind of making this transition here. It's just going, okay, did you have an idea where this is going? Because I wrote down a bunch of shit. And
no, if you got a plan, I didn't really have a plan. I was just more or less I was,
yeah, you just want to talk
we're
about stand-up. That's what I
we're
want
both
to do.
deep rooted in stand up like our whole
Oh my
lives.
gosh.
I grew up on stand up early.
Yes.
Like I couldn't wait for it. I knew stand up existed and I didn't get my hands on it for a while, but like all
Oh
I
shit.
wanted was stand up. I just wanted it.
Uh-huh.
And I got it early. I had the original Kings of Comedy on VHS.
Oh dude, no
So
way. The
and I
VHS.
the VHS and I was
That's so sick, dude.
walking around just saying wild shit, you know?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because that's like, and there's, for I view it as kind of like a compliment when you're imitating people and stuff.
Yeah.
Nowadays, for
Imitate
whatever reason,
the highest form of flattery or something like
yeah,
that, right?
yeah. And nowadays, for whatever reason, some people like view it as being like racist when you talk like somebody else, but it's like, but that's how they talk.
Yeah,
I
you
can't
were
say their joke without talking like they talk.
right. Yeah. And you're not even, and I know what you're getting at, because it's not even that you were won't, it doesn't matter, but like it's not that it was necessarily a joke that had the N-word in it. It was people are giving you shit for talking like a Southern black guy while
Right.
telling their joke, like full on doing a impersonation. But now
Right.
you do that as a white guy on the internet, and that's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. But back in
Yeah.
the day, in high school, we would tell the joke like the person told the joke. Like a Cat Williams
Right.
joke. You would say it like
Yeah.
Cat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I see what you're saying.
Be
Mhm.
talking like Cat or talking, but like what I really got started out with was I liked all of the Kings of Comedy.
Oh yeah.
But hands down, my favorite was Bernie.
Bernie.
So I just walk around.
Fucking right.
I'm like a 12-year-old kid just walking around like him downstairs.
Right.
just saying shit where it's just like now people get uncomfortable or whatever, but it was like
Right.
that's what it was.
Right.
Here I am, motherfuckers. He comes out, everybody just Bernie.
Oh,
I loved it, the whole thing. Like
Bernie, I love Bernie too. Yeah, definitely.
The white people with the leash, and he goes to like he would have the mic here and he would pull the leash and he would hit the mic with his elbow for like
the sound effect,
and he broke the mic.
Oh shit! I forget
and
that
he
part.
broke the mic and he's like trying to talk and he's like, what the fuck?
Like, now I remember it. Now
so
I remember
awesome.
it.
That whole set. I don't remember the whole thing.
I still do that one all the fucking time, especially now having a kid. I do that joke so fucking much. Hey, come here. Nope.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's just and he does the tugging motion and the zoom and runs through my head.
I say the shit
so
like
often.
I say the shit like he says to my son sometimes, but I don't explain myself at all. And he's just like, "Can I have a snack?" And I just be like, "Would you want some milk and cookies?"
Yeah, dude. Your son is like, "What the fuck is Dad doing?"
He just kind of giggles. Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I'll take milk and cookies, whatever."
Oh yeah, I guess milk and cookies
weird.
sounds good, Dad. Why'd you say it like that? But to go back to the like stand up, I think is one of the things that really bonded, like me and you bonded over early, because for people who don't know, just the quick thing is, I moved into a town. It was already high school. I was meeting people, and I think me and Tim really clicked over. One of our things was stand up. I've stopped. put things on my Netflix and then waited until me and Tim could see them. I remember Anthony Jeselnik's.
Oh yeah,
I waited on that one until we hung out.
the fire in the maternity ward.
Yeah, I think it was that one.
Yeah.
Yep, I think it was that one. There's been others. I think Hannibal Buress is on there, and then he had other ones on there too.
Hannibal Buress is weird one.
Yeah,
where he's like singing the whole time. Yeah, that's good though.
Yeah, it's great.
I love it. I don't mean weird in a bad way.
Oh,
I enjoy weird shit. I like when I can't see the punchline coming.
Yes.
If it's off the wall and it's just like awkward. Not necessarily awkward. Awkward might be the wrong term. Like some of that bad grandpa stuff. When it's real life and you're just fucking with people, some of that gets uncomfortable and it's funny, but it's
really funny. But sometimes it's uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
So
I'm with you.
The uncomfortableness I don't necessarily like all the time. That's just like the that Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll watch that show and I'll find myself just being like, oh,
I know, dude. I'm the same way. My wife and her mom, they love that show, and I'm just like, I feel awkward. I feel awkward watching this sometimes.
Like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
I know. I'm with you.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that, but sometimes when you're fucking with real people, like it does something to me that I don't necessarily like all the time.
Yeah, I'm with you. It does make me a little bit more to talk about that stuff. You got people like Steve-O who have kind of made a what they could call a stand-up transition. But he was never the person to like fuck with real people. He was always a stuntman, but to keep it in the jackass realm. Or Eric Andre, who basically just fucks with people, but also has stand-up.
Right.
I don't prefer Steve-O's stand-up over his stunts because he's a real clown and stuntman and like acrobat, I'll say.
Right.
But Eric Andre's stand-up I prefer over his comedy shows, like where he's fucking with people because he's fucking with people so hard.
Right. I know. Some of it is
it's
just
funny.
Like, it is.
It's funny.
Yeah. I have not seen his movie for that reason. Like it has to hit me one day where I'm just like in the mood for it because I don't want to subject myself to sitting down for an hour and a half of just like
I'll say this without spoiling anything. The Dick House team is behind that one.
Yeah.
And it very much feels like Bad Grandpa, just kind of redone.
Okay.
It's like Bad Grandpa through Andre's eyes.
Sure.
So it's a little more extreme in some ways, but you know how far Johnny goes with his stunts.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks he's an old man. So there's that too. Because Johnny takes a physical beating. And if you see shit like that happen to an old man. So just, take that for what it is. It's if you want to see Bad Grandpa again through different lens, it's sustained. You can sit through.
Well, then I'll have to. I do plan on checking it out anyways. I just haven't been like, this is the movie I want to watch.
Right, I got you.
You know, when I get a chance to actually sit down and watch a movie, that hasn't been the one that I've been like, yes.
Yeah.
You know, it will happen.
Oh yeah,
it just hasn't happened yet. But yeah, dude, back to stand up. There is some really good stuff coming out. I'm so happy that we're getting back to the place that we are.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like, because people are getting out in front of people again and like building jokes?
Well, a little bit of that, but more so like the cancel culture was getting out of control for a little while.
Oh yeah. So it did feel like comedy was pulling punches for a little bit, right?
Yeah. But
because even Anthony Jeselnik's last, like if I remember it correctly, it didn't shock me as much as the other ones did.
Right.
And it's I'm the one that's why I go to you, Anthony. I want to hear you say some really crazy shit.
And some of it gets pulled because of like if it's on Netflix is telling you
Was
these
that
are the
right?
jokes that need to. Yeah, Netflix tells you like we
I
can't
thought
have these
Netflix
jokes
wasn't
and stuff.
saying shit, and that's why everybody went there.
No, sometimes Netflix pulls some of that stuff and
Boo.
like oh, why am I brain farting on this name? I literally just listened to him on the latest episode of Steve-O's podcast. Mark Norman. Mark
Mm-hmm.
Norman has a stand-up special that's out now on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And his latest Netflix special, he's like, Netflix let me keep it all. I can't believe it, you know? And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, I got to keep the R word and the Jews and all this stuff. And he's like listing off all the different things that he touches on.
Mm-hmm.
And they let him keep it all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing with Shane Gillis's new stand-up, which is amazing. Like,
yeah, I got that one down as like, I got to check that one out because you already
Mark,
told me.
You check out the one that's free on YouTube if anybody wants to
I'll
watch
that one.
The first one is fantastic. He's so damn good. I'm so impressed at how he's like, I find myself inadvertently like saying stuff that he says sometimes. Like it just gets brought into like my vocabulary now. You know? And just like his delivery is so good. And I love how he says some like wild shit, but the delivery is so well done that you can't even like falter. I don't know what it was that got him canceled in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know what it was either. Yeah.
Because he was, if anybody was, wondering, he was going to be on Saturday Night Live. They hired him. He was supposed to be, and then he said something about Asians on his podcast.
Oh,
and then
I didn't even know that it was that. Like, I honestly just had forgotten because it was also it was years before he was even on SNL, right?
Right. It was like they dug into his background.
Right.
And then they found it. But it clearly wasn't a big deal. It was a joke, It wasn't.
Yeah.
It, by today's standards, whatever he said was, like not okay. But when he said it, it was like something that just happened, like,
yeah, like it's just a joke that you tell, right?
Dude, go back a little bit and like look at what was it? Home Improvement. Tim the Toolman Taylor. Fat jokes all the time. Constantly talking about fat bitches.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just like, that shit would not fly today. You
Married with Children.
For, yeah, exactly. Yep. Stuff like that. Where it's not a big deal. But in hindsight, you're like, okay, that was insensitive, I guess, but nobody thought it at the time,
right?
Until somebody pointed out, hey, that's not cool. So it's just like, whatever. It's no big deal. It's stupid shit. But also, when it's a joke, I don't get offended by shit. So I don't ever understand when anybody's talking about that stuff. And the other side is just funny too, because sometimes you hear all these different arguments on the internet and people just arguing about shit, and they're just, well, you're white, what would you know about it? And just like, I don't know. I guess I don't understand the hardships that you went through, but also if anybody makes fun of me, I don't give a shit. I don't.
Right.
I'm an adopted fat redhead. There's plenty of jokes. There's been plenty of jokes that have been made about me, and I don't give a shit. I've never been just, what the fuck?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't care. I don't know.
Yeah. You take jokes at their, like, you take jokes for what they are, but jokes are supposed to be provocative and thought provoking and make people feel uncomfortable in a way, but make you laugh at like the harsh reality of something, right? Because you just keep doing the thing, and then a comedian points it out and goes, Can't make that shit up. That's just how it is. Like that. That's a punchline, but it's real.
Yeah.
And you
right.
can't have a fucking laugh at it.
Right. I mean, if it's a joke, if it's a good joke, I shouldn't say that I won't get offended by anything, but because, if somebody was just like,
Yeah.
I want to fuck your kid, just be like, yeah, I'm offended.
Right. Because that's not a joke. Not a good
that's
joke.
not a joke. That's just you saying some really messed up shit.
Right.
And I think now you're dead. I think.
I don't know what happened. I blacked out.
Yeah.
Self-defense.
Did I do that? Oracle shit. Wouldn't that be weird? It just black out and kill somebody and then come to, and then you just like, did I do that?
Now that's a good joke.
It's just weird shit. But no, Daniel Tosh has a bit about it. He's like, he says, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's somewhere along the lines of like, just know that if you've said any form of this, I get offended at blank.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can't say blank. And he's like, know that if you've said any form of that I hate you to your core. And then he's just like, you can't say, you can't make a joke about this. And he's like, yes, you can. If it's funny, yes.
If it's funny, yes.
Yeah. And it's like, exactly. If it's a good joke, great. I listen to Kill Tony. Kill Tony is a live stand-up podcast where the host, Tony Hinchcliffe, has bucket pulls where he draws people's names out. They have regulars throughout the set too that come on and do a minute, and they have a guest on the little dais, so it's always like him and another stand-up comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not always a stand-up comedian. Sometimes it's like people that Joe Rogan like pulled with, because he had somebody on his show. Like one of the episodes, Joe Rogan had Post Malone on his episode with Rogan, and then Rogan brought Post Malone
to the show,
so it's like Post Malone. Yeah, so it's Post Malone and Joe Rogan, and I think there was another comedian there too, and then it's also Tony Hinchcliffe, and then they pull out a name from the bucket, and it's just random, and they get a minute, and they go up there and they do comedy, and they try to. Sometimes people are not prepared. Sometimes they're absolutely insane. Sometimes they're really good, and they're trying to get their minute in the light to be like, oh, and sometimes really awesome shit happens. Sometimes somebody kills so hard that they're just like, that was amazing. Like, you did so good. Have you ever done, this? Have you done that? Sometimes they'll be like, have you done stand-up in front of your hometown? Like, you said you moved here to Austin, and they're just like, no. And the guy, like the stand-up comics that's up there, he goes, I tell you what, I actually have a show in a month in your hometown. I'm going to fly you out there and put you in a hotel. You want to open for me? You want to do 5 minutes at the beginning of my show?
Whoa.
And people are like, yes, thank you. It's that kind of shit. And they hook them up.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. And so it's shit like that happens all the time. But I was making this whole point to say that sometimes there's minutes. Like, I just heard one where a guy came up and he was just like, oh yeah, sometimes I try to return the games to GameStop, but they won't take them. And maybe it's because the games I'm trying to return are child, like Asian anime porn or whatever he says. And then he's like, and maybe it's because the GameStop's not a GameStop, but like a daycare. You're just like,
what?
That's not even a joke. It's like all made up bullshit. What are you even talking about? That was the dumbest shit I've ever heard. So it's like that kind of stuff where, like, I'm not offended at your stupid premise, but I'm just mad that you were given this opportunity, and you go up there and you're just like, and you just say the stupidest shit. So
yeah, I get what you're saying. I totally got you, because all of that is to say, like, there are different levels of comedy, like there are different levels of any art form.
Yeah.
And it's comedy. There is a trick to getting the majority of the room to laugh. That's not a trick, a skill. There's a skill to getting the majority of a room to laugh. The majority of
Yeah.
the room laughs with 300 people in it, with 5 people in it, maybe not 5, but 50.
Right.
You can probably scale that up until jokes don't land anymore because like the sound isn't as fast as the like it takes the you're selling out fucking this, oh god, what is it? The Knicks Stadium. Come on now. Where did the Knicks play? The Garden. So
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I was trying to think of it, and I'm glad you said the Garden because I was like, my brain was going to the wrong spot. I was like,
so I've heard
"Oh,
that
shit."
the Garden's so big that it's hard to do comedy in. Obviously, you just keep rolling. Like if you're big enough to sell at the Garden, you just do your set and pause for the people who are immediately. But I've heard that the laughter will come back to you by the time you're starting your next joke if you have a fast set.
Oh yes, I've heard that too. Like it's completely different when you're doing a big area because of that. Yeah, you have to wait for the laugh to come back. It's like weird.
Right.
The timing's all off. So they actually have different sets for different arenas and stuff. But
Right.
you know, if
So
that's a good problem to have.
yeah, no shit,
It's
right?
like my venue that I'm doing is so giant, I have to change my
I have to change the pacing in my set. But that's exactly where I'm going with all of this is there's different forms and shit like that. And just don't fucking listen to it then. Don't laugh at it if you don't find
Yeah.
it funny. Like you just gave an example of a shitty joke.
Yeah.
Don't laugh at it. It's not a joke. That's not a comedian. That's not funny.
No,
And
yeah,
then
no petty
there's a
laughs.
well-placed 9/11 joke in Anthony Jeselnik's,
Right.
and you can't help but laugh like, oh fuck, I can't believe you already said that it's only September 12th, right?
Right.
And I'm using obviously an extreme example. I've never heard that from Anthony Jeselnik, but you get. I shouldn't have thrown his name in there, but I was using him as a shock comic, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
I mean, which he is,
yeah. I mean, he admits it, right? Like I believe that's his
Yeah.
Twitter profile and all that shit.
So
So
that's what he's going for.
yeah, exactly. It's supposed to offend you, to make you think, to make you, look at things differently, to catch you
Mhm.
off guard,
Mm-hmm.
make you uncomfortable, and then laugh it off almost, right? And then you have people like Chappelle, Chris Rock. They will, I mean, yeah, okay. I have to name 2 of the greatest comedians of all time, if not the 2 greatest comedians
Right.
of all time.
Right.
But there will be speeches in there too. They'll have like downtime
Yeah.
from where it's not just joke and joke and joke and joke, or they have these really long, what ends up being a speech, which is an incredible build up to a punchline.
Yeah.
There's stuff like that where you may not find the speech entertaining and fun or whatever if you're not a fan of Chris Rock already.
Right.
Or you may not like going to a comedy show and feeling like you're being preached to or whatever. But
Right.
don't preach back at the comedian. That's not how it works. Like if you
Right.
go to a fucking speech, if you go to listen to somebody speaking, it's not a debate.
Right.
Right?
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be a debate. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the point. That's exactly. And so
Right.
it's no different with comedians because they're supposed to be doing this. They're supposed to be making
Yeah.
you think in a different way. The court gesture, was the only person back in the day that could make
Yeah.
fun of the king.
Yeah.
You got to think of things
And-
like that when it comes
and
down
when-
to it.
And when you're dealing with a comic, you just have to stay the course. Have faith that this joke is going somewhere.
Right.
Don't get offended the moment they start talking because they said something you don't agree with.
Right.
Hold on and wait. See what happens at the end.
Right. Because you don't know
You don't have to like
you don't know the set.
right.
Hopefully.
And you don't have to like every joke. And you don't have to like every comedian. I don't know why some people are just like, he's not funny. To you, move the fuck on. Go to
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Some art isn't for, like Jackson Pollock. Yeah, you can like him. I'm not someone who's into splatter art. Like, just
Right.
not my thing. Not for me.
Yeah.
Respect
I
the
mean,
shit out of the guy and his work and what it's become. But
yeah, we have one. I mean, if just on comics, the Hot Pocket guy.
that's right, Jim Gaffigan.
Yeah.
I like Jim.
Yeah,
I've listened to
I'm
his
not.
book. I thought it was funny.
Yeah,
Yep, Hot Pockets. Yeah, for sure.
I'm not a big fan. You
Right.
know, it's just.
Uh-huh.
But and it's nothing. It's nothing against him.
No.
I like when he's on Rogan. I actually like listening to the guy talk. I'm sure his book would probably be pretty good. I just, for as far as his stand up goes, his jokes aren't bad. They're just not my cup of tea.
Sure.
And that's just how it goes. Like people have differences and stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And it's just, I'm not trying to shit on them. I'm not trying to be like, here's what I don't like. You know,
Right.
I'll do that in public. I'll tell you, I've done it before where I'm just like, I don't get this. I don't get, but like, that's just what it is. Everybody's got their own sense of humor. They're different, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's, Rogan has a bit like that in his stand-up where he's like, you don't have to like everything. People are pretty goddamn different. He's like, I don't get yellow sports cars. It's like, I get that you get it, but I don't get it. You know? And it's like, yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Yeah, dude.
and people like different stuff. I did want to say, because you mentioned Chris Rock, I was thinking about this beforehand. My first 2 CDs I ever had
Yeah, dude.
were Snoop Dogg's The Dog Pound
Yes.
and Blackstreet's No Diggity. I think that, or was it just called Blackstreet? Maybe it was like a self-titled album, Blackstreet's Blackstreet or whatever.
Yeah.
Those
I think
2
it was.
albums were bought by my parents and they didn't know what they bought me. I don't think
No,
they
they
knew
didn't.
what parental guidance was because Blackstreet wasn't like parental guidance, but there are like, it's R&B. So
it gets
they're talking
graphic.
about fucking.
Yeah.
And and Snoop Dogg is just like crazy.
Yeah. That record is nuts, dude. That record is nuts. If you listen to it.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, and I remember like playing it loud. I remember just like, hey Snoop, they say your beat's gonna be dedicated straight and sit the speeds out, man. He says something like that. And I'm like, maybe I should listen back to it now, but I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that other guy goes. And then Snoop goes, beats, delicates. So that's what make the fuck, or he goes, so that's what the fuck make me now? And he goes, N-word, I don't give a fuck about no beat. And I just go, damn, that's like one of the first things you hear on that album. And I was like, what did they get me? This is awesome. And I'm just like, whenever they were out of the house, I'm just like pumping that shit.
Fuck
like,
yeah, dude. Yep.
But the first CD I ever bought with my own money was Chris Rock's Bigger and Blacker.
Was it, dude?
Yeah, the first
Fuck
CD
yeah.
I ever bought with my own money was Stand Up. And I didn't even know who he was.
So
like,
good. Oh,
I
really?
just knew that he was a stand-up and I knew people saying, like, talking about him.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I need this. Like, I needed to have stand-up in my life. And I was just like, I'm buying whatever.
Yeah.
And at the time he was the biggest name. And I'm like, yes, if everybody loves him, I need to hear his stand-up.
Right.
And I've been like that ever since. Like I got to hear everybody's stand-up.
Yeah.
And I've tried to hear most people. There's a couple of people where I'm just like, no interest. I know straight off the gate, like what you're about, like political comics. Nah.
Right. Yep.
I don't care about that.
Yep.
Except for I do like Lewis Black, but that's still like not even that political, you know?
Yeah.
But
he has a
does
different
go there a
angle that
little
he's
bit.
doing with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff I like. But yeah, dude, it's been a ride. I've loved stand up my whole life, and I definitely have like stuff that rattles around in my brain. I know we touched on it when we were talking with Nathan too, where it's just like, yeah, I've thought about doing stand up before, but One of the things is like all of them talk about how you got to be doing it like 10 years.
Yeah. That's the old
until you
saying
get
is like
proficient and
everything
stuff.
in order to get good at it, you have to do it 10 years
Yeah.
before you can get anywhere. Uh-huh.
So I really feel like it would be a blast and stuff, but it's like stand up is done at night. Stand up is done on the weekends.
Yep.
And I like to fish. So it's like, how do you those
Right.
two hobbies don't just really overlap each other.
Right. For sure.
But I do jot down ideas all the time.
Yeah.
And notes and stuff. Like I have
Shit, dude.
I've never tried to put it together into like a minute, but I bet if I sat down and actually like tried to put it together, I probably got a strong 5 minutes.
Shit.
But
that's awesome.
Which is
Would you watch
crazy
us
when we
live? Internet, leave comments. Would you watch
Live.
Tim live and then hang out with us afterwards?
Do you want this isn't I mean
I don't know
these
how
are
you
kinda
get
like-
feedback on it, but you know, we
I don't
kind of
know.
did it over COVID.
This is kind of stand up. These are like just I have a lot of random thoughts I drive around thinking all the time, right? So some of this stuff isn't necessarily stand up. I just have random thoughts.
Already off to a good start. This is how you should start the set.
But the other day I was like, so if you do prostitutes accept crypto? and if they do
already,
and if they do you call it a doge blowge? It's like,
yeah, you do. The answer is yes.
yes to both. All right.
Yeah.
Because I just, that was a thought that popped in. And then I also thought I got a lot of these, so I'm not going to give all of them like right now because I'm not this isn't becoming a stand-up spot.
No, we got to wrap up quick soon.
We live in Minnesota and we do have homeless people here. Why the fuck don't homeless people have dope ass snow forts? I've seen people, they have like on Instagram and stuff where they have like bars that they've made on a lake and they've made like an igloo and they have drinks and there's a fireplace and you have like a bed that you have inside this thing and you have it to live. And from my experience, the two things that you need to make a dope snow fort is time and snow. Both things that a homeless person in Minnesota has unlimited amounts of. What's going on?
Step up your game.
I don't think I've ever seen one with a snow fort.
Right. So to quick, bigger and blacker, I must have borrowed your CD or burned your CD or something, man. I listened to that CD over and over. It was one of the first DVDs that I ended up buying, I believe. Right. Because PS2 ended up with a DVD player in it. I think it was one of the first two DVDs that I bought. And one of the first few DVDs that I bought. But I remember listening to that CD over and over and fucking over, dude. Because that was the only place you could get No Sex in the Champagne Room or a single back then.
Right.
Because it wasn't on the... No Sex in the Champagne Room wasn't part of the set, of course.
Yeah.
So I don't even remember if it's on the DVD or not. But in the CD, it just, it flows through and No Sex is just there.
Yep. There is no sex in the champagne room.
Oh, and the boxing, it seems to have dislocated his eye. Like there's skits on there. I forgot about that.
Dude, I gotta say too, my exposure to Chris Rock was earlier than I had realized.
Me too. You first.
So when we were younger, Space Jam, he was Lil Penny.
Yep.
And that had he was the Basketball Jones guy, and I didn't know it when I was younger.
Me neither.
Like hit me later in life.
Right. Same.
But I didn't know who he was when I bought the CD. I did not put two and two together at that time.
Right.
But yeah, when I bought that,
I had no idea either.
Basketball Jones.
Yep.
I got a basketball Jones.
CB4. I didn't realize like that was Chris Rock.
Oh yeah, CB4, the movie. Yeah,
The movie. Yep. So I
Yeah,
had seen
yeah,
that
yeah.
because we had HBO and shit when I was a kid, and so I had seen
Yeah.
parts of that as a kid, and
yeah,
I didn't realize that was Chris Rock. You know,
yeah.
then that was like his first movie.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, Lil Penny
Dude.
also didn't know that was him
Yep.
until later in life. It's
Yep. Mike Tyson throws the ball against the wall and makes it fall.
oh shit, Lil Penny got flow. Like that's what.
It's just like he's not even trying to like mask it. It's just Chris Rock.
Right. I know, but you didn't know that as a kid.
And then he sings it with the start off. I got a basketball Jones. He sings it. He's like, I can't sing. He's like, somebody get in vogue in here. Then they come in here. I got a basketball Jones. Yeah, dude. You know what? This is a little bit random, but because we are coming up on October, and maybe it'll be time to talk about some horror movies again. I don't know. We haven't chatted on what's coming up.
Right.
But
Keep going.
Chris Rock does have a serious role in a movie called Saw. Or no, is it Jigsaw? He is a detective in a movie that is in like the same world as the Saw movies. Like he's
okay.
going after him or something. I have not seen that one yet.
Okay.
And I meant to. I think I started watching it, and I was just like, "We're watching this," and my wife was like, "I don't really want to tonight." And I'm like, "Fuck." So then I haven't watched that, but yeah, I think it's called Jigsaw.
Jigsaw, yeah, is part of it, and because Jigsaw's the killer. But anyways, let's not keep going. We're gonna have to just do this again because I had Kevin Hart on here as a whole entire topic at one point. And I was like, cool, this is gonna be the chance to talk about Kevin Hart. It was not. We're gonna have to come back to it. Also, we gotta come and talk about the shit that we've seen live because I think you've been to some smaller stuff live that I haven't been to live. I've been to some shit downtown that you haven't been to.
Yeah.
There's so much more, but we got to cut it off, dude. Again, just like with the lakes topic, we're getting long.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe. Please go over to YouTube, youtube.com/@realaftv. Remember, real like fish and reel. Help us out. I missed one fucking day in like this every other Monday launch, and all of a sudden it's like the algorithm thinks we're not around anymore. I don't really know what happened, but we were on this upward trend. Now we're on this way down. I don't get it. Is it because it's not fishing season anymore? I don't think so. Either way, if you're listening to this on podcast stuff, go over to YouTube, give us a subscribe and shit, and help us out a little bit. Dude, just give us a like. Just give it a like. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you can train the algorithm. I'm sure you already have. It's training you. Anyways, Tim, what else?
Yeah. I think that's about it that we have for the podcast. All the promos and whatnot, but
yeah,
definitely come back for the next one because we got more to talk about. We've seen some names.
Doubt about
it's
that.
not like we're gonna talk about some little no-name nothings. We've been to some shows.
We've been to some shows for sure, and we didn't even touch on the Adam